The revelation of God may be likened to the sun. No matter how innumerable its risings, there is but one sun, and upon it depends the life of all things. The Bob. Through their appearance, the revelation of God is made manifest, and by their countenance, the beauty of God is revealed. Thus it is that the accents of God himself have been heard uttered by these manifestations of the divine being. Baha'u'llah.
Thank you. So today we're really happy to have Mr. Loujan Jubin Matin, and he will be talking about God's single yet unfolding decree for progressive revelation. Loujan Jubin Matin was raised in a God-loving family with a strong belief in Jesus as Christ, but he lacked the Bible knowledge to back up his faith. To remedy this void, in 2018, he enrolled in a Southern Baptist University seminary and graduated in 2022 with a master's in theological studies. During the 4 years, Loujan studied what feels like an infinite number of textbooks written by recognized evangelical scholars, learned biblical Hebrew, and wrote his thesis focused on disqualifying the false Messianic claimants, leaving Jesus of Nazareth as the sole claimant who fulfilled the Messianic prophecies in the Jewish Holy Scriptures. In 2023, he converted his thesis into a book, Messianic Prophecies Cross Examined, which was published by Zondervan subsidiary WestBow Press. So with that, I'll hand it off to Mr. Loujan Jubin Matin.
Great to be back to you. Thanks for inviting me again. Dear friends, thank you so much for taking time from your very busy schedules and to be here. We'll make sure that your time is well worth it. We have prepared something awesome, I think. The presentation is comprised of 8 different segments. First segment is a general overview of the Baha'i faith. The next segment is my bio, a short bio of where is my source of information. Next section is God's decree. What is God's decree? What is the definition of it? The next segment is the free will of man. The next one is the role of Abraham in this divine drama, this unfolding divine drama. Next segment is what is the role of Moses in this God's decree. The next segment is the role of Jesus Christ. The next segment, who is Baha'u'llah and what is his role? And then a summary of my presentation and concluding remarks. Let me go back and let's dive right in now with that little preamble. The history of Baha'i faith cannot be really best explained. I think best can be explained by just giving a history of Christianity. Very brief history gives us preparation for the Baha'i faith. Most of us know in the 1st century, God sent John the Baptist to prepare the way for the coming of Messiah. People were not prepared for that. Well, they were waiting, but they were not prepared. So he said, people, stop sinning. Your heart has to be purified, clear, to receive such an exalted being. And he expressed his evanescence, his nothingness before Messiah by saying that I'm not worthy to tie the laces of his sandal. That exalted he is. Well, during this few years of his ministry, he had many people who were Jews believe that he is the forerunner of Messiah, and they believed in him. One of the people who came to be baptized, he baptized, by the way, to purify people's hearts. Very rudimentary Jewish tradition was to baptize people to free them of their sins, clean them up. So this man by the name of Jesus from Nazareth came up to another individual, came up to the Jordan River, and John the Baptist realized that this one is not like the rest of them. So I cannot baptize you. Jesus said, I suffer you to baptize me. So John the Baptist proceeded with that. And when Jesus came out of the Jordan River water, the Bible in the book of Matthew says a lightning, a force like a lightning, descended upon Jesus. That force from Almighty was the Messiah, this Holy Spirit, the Christ that we're talking, the Spirit of God, actually. At that moment, Jesus the man became Jesus the Christ. So John the Baptist continued his preaching to the point that he got on the nerve of the government. And government, making a story short, they made sure John the Baptist is out of the picture. John, the forerunner, is out of the picture. They thought it was all finished, but didn't realize that Jesus says, deal with me now. I am the one who sent him. So wow, back to square one again. So government have to deal with Jesus now. So Jesus also spoke of the impending coming of the kingdom of God. And for about 3 years of his ministry, plus the apostles, he revealed about 120, maybe 110 or 20 pages of a new revelation, like of which mortal eyes had never seen before. Making the story very short, Jesus himself was also crucified by the same government that had beheaded his forerunner. This is a history of very, very, very brief history of Christianity. Oh, one other point, Jesus said, I will return. Even though you have crucified me, Jesus Christ said, I will return again, but not as a son. I will come as a glory of the Father. I will come as a glory of God. This is Matthew 16:27. So this brief background prepares us for understanding the Baha'i faith, basically. Fast forward 1844 years. Southern part of Iran, Shiraz, a young man of 25 years of age, really a youth at 25 years of age, said, I am the one whom God has sent to prepare the coming of the one who is about to come after me. Excuse me. So he expressed the same evanescence, same nothingness before this exalted being who is about to come. Different phrase, but same concept. He said, I'm not worthy to be the stone on the ring of his little finger. John the Baptist said, I cannot tie his laces. Same concept was conveyed. During his ministry of 9 years, about 100,000 Iranians believed that he is somebody that to believe in. So became Babis. His fame spread so much that the government of Iran Islamic government of Iran began to execute 20,000 of his followers painfully. They are called martyred. Even infants were not had no mercy on them. So 20,000 of his followers were martyred. Himself received the same treatment as John the Baptist did. Just as beheading someone is a sure way of getting rid of their existence, government of Iran did a similar thing, but not beheaded. They put him in front of firing squad. Well, not 10 rifles, not 100 soldiers with rifles, not 500, 750 loaded rifles were emptied towards the ball, this young man. This happened in 1831, July 10th. So the Bab, the forerunner, just as beheading, make sure we get out of the picture. So this and the parallel that exists between these two faiths is amazing. So the government made sure this forerunner is out of the picture. They thought, okay, they took this big sigh of relief that, okay, it's finished with. Didn't realize the same government that ordered the execution of the Bab, the son of the minister, the one that the king of Iran loved and respected most, he lived like a prince. He lived in a depth of wealth and power. Said, I am the one. I'm abbreviating the history of this thing. By the way, before I forgot this piece, before the Bab was executed, he gave the title of the one who is about to come. He said his title is Baha'u'llah. So having said that, this Baha'u'llah, who was the son of the minister of Iranian government, said, I am the one. So the government of Iran, basically, they put him in a dungeon called Black Pit for 4.5 months, ankle deep with feces, stench-filled air, dungeon of a subterranean water reservoir. Baha'u'llah says, in those moments, during the days I lay, this is exact quote of Baha'u'llah. During the days I lay in prison of Tehran, though the galling weight of the chain and the stench-filled air allowed us but a little sleep. During those infrequent moments of slumber, I felt as though something flowed over my head, over my breast. Even, he gave an example of what it was like, even as a mighty torrent, mighty waterfall that precipitated itself from the summit of the high mountain upon the earth. Every limb of my body, as a result, was set on fire. As a result. Then Baha'u'llah says, at that moment, my tongue recited, what no man can bear to hear. This was the moment of Baha'u'llah's intimation with God, just as Jesus Christ's intimation was the descent of the Spirit from the lightning, the force of a lightning. In this case, the force of the waterfall. They both analogize the force that they experience in these phrases. Anyway, after 4.5 months of imprisonment, Baha'u'llah was released from Tehran to Baghdad, which is Babylon of those years of the first century. Then he was exiled to Turkey, Ottoman Empire. Then he was to Adrianople, and he was finally sent by the force of 2 governments to Palestine, Akka, a penal colony, for 27 years. Total of 40 years of his life, Baha'u'llah spent in captivity and exile. During these 40 years, Baha'u'llah revealed a library. If Jesus Christ revealed 100 or 210 pages of New Testament, imagine this, 100 volumes of it now have been released. I call it a library, which is called the Baha'i Faith, whose primary goal, the Baha'i Faith has 2 goals, in my understanding, has got 2 goals. Number 1, on a conceptual level, number 2, on a practical level. On a conceptual level, the purpose of this revelation on earth is to unite the hearts of the peoples of the planet Earth. Period. Called the oneness of mankind. To unite the hearts of the peoples of the world. On a practical level, the goal of this revelation is to make the world a better place. Our unity is powerful because what we're doing to make the world a better place, because of our unity is critical. Power exists in this faith because we are united. Whatever we do it worldwide. Anyway, so this is a brief history of the Baha'i faith. So the general overview. Over 850 languages have been translated. Baha'u'llah is writing from 850 languages. Christianity has 254 nations. Baha'i faith is about 180 years old. Is right now the second most widespread religion on earth. Christianity, after the 3rd century, it spread to Rome. In this revelation, after 1.5 centuries, it has spread to 220 nations. You can see the speed of the growth of this faith. Anyway, this is the general overview. The second segment of my presentation is about my bio. I'm going to make it brief, but it's important for you all to know where is the source of my information. Being a Baha'i faith, most of my information with you is coming from the Baha'i writings. Also, as the Perry John mentioned during the introduction, I did something crazy, maybe cool crazy. I enrolled in a Southern Baptist University in 2018. Passed through the application process. Thank God for that. Paid my tuition monthly. Read 25, like she said. Studied and wrote a report for each one of them. Learned Hebrew, the grammar, the vocabulary, the complex prophecies in Hebrew. Failed miserably in my first. I had to hire a tutor to help me to understand this language, and I passed the exam. Thank God for that. And the tutor. And it takes 2nd semester, and again, same thing, much more advanced. Again, I failed. Again, hired a tutor. Thank God for the tutor. Anyway, passed the Hebrew language, which is really tough as part of my education. Then I wrote a thesis about something critically important to me. That was when I found out that book of Acts, which is Act book 5, 36 and 37, said that there were other people besides Jesus who claimed to be the Messiah. But friends, that shocked me. This is a book of 5, Acts 5, 36, 37. So they were other people besides. That determined my thesis, basically. So my goal, because I, as a Baha'i, we were raised that Jesus is the Messiah. However, history, Bible says that there were other people. So that became the impetus, the inspiration of my thesis, to disqualify, to disprove all of these false claimants. To do that, I identified 3 most, excuse me, 3 most recognized Messianic figures: Jesus of Nazareth, Simon Bar Kokhba, and Sabadi Zabi. These other 2 people have followers, people. They have books. Their followers, they believe that Jesus is a false Messiah, by the way. They currently have some followers right now in Turkey. So anyway, to identify the biography of these three men from the King James Version, I identified the biography of Jesus Christ. From the IMFA, Israeli Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which was a reliable source, I gathered the biography of these two other Messianic claimants. So the sources of information was pretty solid of who these were. Then I identified 31 prophecies, Messianic prophecies about the coming of Messiah from the Jewish Holy Scriptures. So 31 prophecies from the Old Testament, and then the biographies of these three people. Juxtaposed the prophecies against the biographies. For example, if Micah 5:2 in Old Testament says Messiah must come from Bethlehem, well, I examined the biography of Jesus. What city were you born? Where were you born? Well, Bethlehem. Okay, check. You so far said. So remaining 30 prophecies, I provided a question from each prophecy, asked the biography, did this biography fulfill or not? This way was objective approach to disqualify or qualify anyone that claimed to be the Messiah. As a result, Jesus was the one who fulfilled the prophecies. So that is the source of my information. At the middle of the school, I had an email, 2 years into school, a publishing house wanted to look at my manuscript, look at my thesis. And I called the editor. I asked him, how do you know? I'm nobody. I'm just a student. What do you know? He said, your advisor, your thesis advisor, gave us a heads up that what you're writing is worthy of looking at it. So the publishing house was Zondervan. I don't know if you know what Zondervan is, the 800-pound gorilla of the publishing industries in Christianity. They are the Google of the Christian industries. So I submitted when I graduated, I submitted my paper to them. After 2 weeks, the editor called me back, said, this is life-changing. Your thesis it shifted my consciousness. Wow. However, we cannot proceed with it. I said, come again? Why not? She said, highly technical. People will not understand what you've written. You need to kind of give it more life. You can simplify it so it would be understood. People would be bored to read your book. So we can proceed until you convert your thesis into the book. By the way, this is the book that right now is being published by the subsidiary of Zondervan, WestBow Press. Anyway, so after a year and a half of trying to convert my thesis into the book, they proceeded with publishing it. It was on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and 30,000 bookstores around the world. It shocked me that my 4 years of solitude that I was writing my thesis, it got a little bit of attention to it. After a while, by the way, I pulled my book out of Amazon. By the way, temporarily, it's not on Amazon. If you want to order it, it's on my website. But because there were some mistakes, I had to revise it. Anyway, that's a source of my information. The third segment of my presentation is God's decree. Dear friends, what is God's decree? What is the word decree? Decree, I'm going to explain it. Any order from legal authority which has consequences if you don't abide by it. Decree, farman in the language for decree means any law that comes, if you don't abide by it, it has consequences. God's decree, we don't want to joke with it. We don't want to play with it. God has a decree. His decree, dear friends, we all want to go to heaven when we die. We all want to go to paradise. God's decree is, I want this heaven that you die happens before you die. I'm going to send you the prophets, the manifestations, the messengers to teach you guys, work with me to have this heaven before you die, not after. So this is God's decree to have his heaven on earth for all of us. However, mankind is so resistant, so belligerent, we crucify him, we behead him, we put him in prison. We do everything we can to his messengers that are trying to educate us how to have this beautiful life before we die. Hence, we are human beings. Anyway, so I'm going to have to go into this a little more depth. God created 5 kingdoms. 5 kingdoms. Kingdom of minerals, this is in the book of Genesis and Baha'i faith. Kingdom of Genesis. Kingdom of minerals, kingdom of plants, kingdom of animals, man, and manifestations of God. Each one of these kingdoms has a fulfilling stage, has a maturity. They all have a maturing stage, fulfilling stage. The maturity of the kingdom of minerals, yes, they mature. Even though they're inanimate, they mature. Example of it is an element called carbon. Give it enough pressure and time and heat, it turns into diamond. The maturity of element of dirt is diamond. The sign of maturity of a plant, the next kingdom, is what? When it bears a fruit. When you go orange tree, when it bears a fruit, that tree has reached maturity, that it cannot bear fruit. In the kingdom of animals, the sign of maturity of an animal is when it bears a child, when it gives a child. That's a sign of maturity, physical maturity. The sign of maturity of humanity, there are two signs of maturity, individual and collective. Individual sign of maturity of individual being is when that soul recognizes the manifestation of God for that age. That's a sign of maturity of that human being. Collectively, the sign of our maturity is when we resolve our differences, our conflicts, whether friends, family, government, any conflict, when we resolve our differences amicably. That's a sign of maturity of humanity. So, of course, the next kingdom manifestation, it does not need any maturity. It's already perfect. I'm going to share with you guys a story about this God's decree. This is a story that I learned in the school, that God called his angels to his before his throne. So all the angels gathered, and God said, listen to me carefully. I have a proposal for you guys. So I want to give you guys a free will. The angels said, okay, let us consult, discuss this among one another. We'll get back to you. Man, standing behind the pillars, was listening to this exchange between God and the angels. And he was, see, what is the answer the angels going to be? So angels, after a few hours, came back to God and said, God, thank you for the offer, but no thank you. We don't want it. Man jumped in the middle of the stage, said, we'll take it. We'll take the free will. So man's free will is I'm going to right now jump to my next phase of man's free will. That's my fourth segment. Man's free will, it is something that we really have to appreciate. What is the range of our free will consist of? Dear friends, the decree of, never mind the decree, the universe is infinite. There is no end to this universe as we look at night sky. Imagine the creator of the universe, how vast, incredibly beyond our understanding what God is. God has a decree. This being has a decree, correct? For us to have heaven on earth. Man's free will, which is so infinitesimally small next to God, we are invisible compared to God. Man's free will stands in front of God's decree. This nothingness of humanity stands before God's decree, equally the same strength. We refuse God's decree. Can you imagine this? An infinitesimally small being stands before the creator of the universe, and his will is equal to God's will. This is unbelievable. Man, God has done it over and over again. We refuse God's will. This little will of man, I'm going to do it my own way. I'm going to do it the way I want to, whatever. That's really remarkable. The range of this is phenomenal. The moment that we desire something that is bad, something that we shouldn't do, we shouldn't look at, we shouldn't touch, the moment we desire to do something. However, when we stop that desire and do the will of God instead of our own will, at that moment, those few seconds, we have become an angel. Angels are those who only do the will of God. That's the height of our, may I say, my understanding, by the way. We can remain human as a man and don't do anything, or we can do whatever I wanted to do, what my heart wanted to do. By following my own heart, I do the things that I shouldn't do, look at the things I shouldn't look at, all the things. At that moment, man has descended into an animal. So the range, when you obey God's decree, you elevate to the level of angel, when you disobey it, you have now become an animal. The moment you do the things that you wanted to do and ignore the will of God, we have debased ourselves to a beast with intelligence. So this is a range of the free will of man, which I think we all get the point. Some of us would like to have God's blessings. At the same time, we want to do our own will. I'm going to do my own will, but I'm going to ask for forgiveness. Well, you cannot keep the pie and eat it too. You cannot go and have it both ways. You've got to either choose to obey the will of God or you obey your own free will. So whenever the will of man reflects the will of God, if this is will of man, will of God, when will of man reflects the will of God, we have heaven on earth. So long as we not do that, we have hell on earth, if I can put it succinctly. So that is the third section of my presentation. The fourth segment of my talk is the role of Abraham, dear friends, in this divine drama. Friends, Abraham had the toughest of all responsibility. Let me show you why. He came from the city of Ur, U-R-Ur. If you Google image it, you'll find is Kuwait. Abraham came from the same exact region as Kuwait was, southern Mesopotamia, which is Kuwait. Well, this is 1700 years before Christ came. This is Abraham goes about 700-800 years. Abraham, at his time, people carved their own idols, their own gods, and then they prayed to it, prayed for rain. Lo and behold, rain came. They prayed for the increase of their stock market, the stocks of the cattle, and cattle increased. Lo and behold, they prayed for agriculture. Lo and behold, they got it. For several centuries, they prayed to these idols, and their petitions were responded. Of course, it was God's compassion responding to their petitions. Here comes Abraham. Having kept that in mind, for centuries, these people have been getting positive results from their idols. Abraham comes and says, no, that's not the right one. You are worshiping the false God, false. You try to convince these people that they're worshiping false God. When I got a positive result from my prayers, so you can imagine the difficulty of his task. He said, listen, the God that I want you to believe is a God that is invisible. Pray to him. So the concept, and in order for you to get the rain coming down, you have to have what? Faith. The concept of faith was created by the invisibility of God. If you have faith in God, he will respond to your petitions. So that's the difficult concept. Even today, we have difficulty with having faith in God, which Abraham had to deal with at the time. Anyway, many people believed in him. They're called Hebrews. The followers of Abraham called Hebrews, of Moses, Jews, of Christ, Christians, and so forth and so on. The followers of Abraham, Jacob, he had 12 sons. They migrated from Canaan to Egypt after 450 years of slavery, hard labor. 600, they developed into 650,000. From 12, they grew to about about 600,000 people. They lived in Egypt. And Pharaoh knew that they are foreigners, so he treated them as slaves to build these mighty edifices. And there were no weekends, guys. These slaves had no weekends, no coffee time, no break time. Incessantly, their DNA had become slaves. They knew how to be constructed workers. They mastered the art of construction. Precisely God's decree in process. This is, you will see why this was God's decree, basically. That these slaves under Pharaoh, they mastered the art of construction. And they became rugged. Moses calls them, you stiff-necked people. You are so stiff-necked. You are so stubborn in your perspective. You don't change your wheels. But I'm going to train you. So Moses came from the son of Pharaoh. He took them out of the clutches of Pharaoh. 40 years of his, he took him to the wilderness of Sinai. And then, as most of you know, God revealed to him in a burning bush, 10 commandments and other laws, and came and showed the Hebrews that God has laws. Beloveds, Hebrews, all they knew, God exists. That's all they knew. What are you talking about, Moses? What laws? God that we know of has no laws. And you're telling us, God, we prefer to go and be bondage of Pharaoh than to be bondage to the laws of your laws. So we want to go back to slavery again. Well, Moses taught them a lesson. I don't want to tell you what it was, but it was, they straightened up. They straightened up, it took him 40 years to straighten up of this wilderness, which was, the Bible covers, very beautifully describes what happens in this 40 years. In these 12 brothers, the descendants, they had war among one another. They really bloodshed. They were killing cousins badly. A young man, an 18, 17-year-old young by the name of David, had a bright idea. David is the King David later on. His valor, listen, brothers, cousins, let us come together. We have the 10 Commandments, the tablets called the Ark of the Covenant. Let's build a temple and put the Ark of the Covenant in the center of it and worship it and believe it and do the things and all that stuff. And put a wall around it. Well, they liked the idea. So they stopped bloodshed. They were unified. Moses unified, through David, unified this warring tribes of Israel. They become unified. They became unified and they built this city. And they said, in order to have autonomy, respect by the surrounding nations, we're going to put walls around it, with a north, south, east, west, with gates. They put a wall around the city, and then they gain respect of these surrounding nations. That city is called Jerusalem. Now, David and his son Solomon, this is all part of God's decree, friends. David and Solomon, their fame of what they did within this 0.31 square mile. Barely 1 square mile was the circumference of Jerusalem. 0.3 multiplied by 0.3, you barely make 1 square mile. 1 square mile was the size of Jerusalem initially. So within this 1 square mile, temple was built, enormous temple. How did they build it? The technique that they had learned during the slavery under the Pharaoh was displayed on building the temple now. This was God's decree. That's why they were learning for 450 years to learn all the mighty edifices, so they can build the temple of David. This is amazing God's decree and process. So the city became so established, so civilized, so advanced, so the surrounding nations would send their kings and the representatives just to see what is happening, what is the city. And to the point that Ethiopia, the Queen Sheba of Ethiopia, came with camel loads of gold and precious metals to visit Solomon and his wisdom and everything here. So when she came and saw the tour of the city, Sheba said, I have only heard half of the things about you. Now that I see is twice as much as I heard. Bring more gold for Solomon. So Solomon was just wealth of civilization unseen by him, by the people of the time. Dear friends, everything has shelf life. So did this glorious Davidic civilization. The shelf life of Judaic dispensation was coming to an end when David and Solomon sinned. They became idolaters. They began to worship false idols. So that was the end of the Judaism. It was really finished when Babylon, which is Persia, invaded the Jerusalem and destroyed the walls and took the Jews out back to the slavery that they were before again. They became diaspora. One of the people, by the way, this is the end of the 4th segment of my presentation. Now we're going to go to the 5th segment, the impact of Jesus Christ, basically. One of the people who lived in Jerusalem who was not taken as a slave to Babylon, his name was Jesus. He came from the city of Nazareth, a village of an unheard of city, and which I explained earlier, his forerunner came, and then he said, I am nobody before Jesus Christ. And then Jesus came with his teachings. Dear friends, just as bloodshed took place among Jews, among the Israelites, now these people have become Jews, right? Now they have their own enemy. The united force of Jews has their own enemy called the Romans. Roman Empire and Jews were in battle, constant in bloodshed for hundreds of years. Same bloodshed that was happening between the Israelites is happening with Jews and their neighbor, Romans now. Bloodshed is blood. Blood is blood. God doesn't like either one of them to be shed. So this is the teaching of Jesus Christ. Through instrumentality of Paul and Peter, Paul traveled to Asia Minor, which is Turkey, and brought the Romans under the banner of Jesus Christ. As Peter brought the Jews into Christianity, so the Jews and Romans were finally united. They stopped killing one another. The unity that took place between Jews and Gentiles is one of the greatest fruits of Christianity. The bloodshed ended by Jesus Christ. The two enemies for centuries that were killing each other, whether Israelites or Romans and Jews, were ended by believing that Jesus is the one or Moses was the one. Before it's with me so far. The circle of unity from 1 mile square that Moses established, dear friends, look what Christ has done. This group, this span of people who believe in him starts from Australia, all Christians, New Zealand, entire Europe, United States, Canada, South America, is 15.3 million square miles. 1 square mile of Moses compared to 15.3 million square miles of people have united under the banner of Christianity. The unity is the critical thing here. So from 1 mile to 15.3 million miles. So Jesus, in his revelation, that plus his apostles, he revealed, like I said, the New Testament of 110 pages, together we call the Bible, with the Jewish Holy Scriptures, created a civilization. Just as Moses created Judaic civilization, Christ created the Western civilization. Western civilization is not an Islamic civilization. It is not a Hindu civilization, nor is Buddhist, nor Jewish. It is a Christian civilization. This Christian civilization created by Christ started from this no man who knew nobody knew him. When he stepped into the field of history, he laid the seed, Jesus Christ laid the seeds of a new world order in depth of his writings. Took 2,000 years to evolve to, like I said, it has a fruition time, it has a fulfillment time. So this maturity of the Christianity, even though albeit it is a flawed and imperfect civilization, the current world European civilization, as we all know, is imperfect civilization. There are lots of flaws in it, correct? Dear friends, it was not intended to be a perfect civilization. It was as a temporary phase. Why? God's decree, please be this is God's decree for the Western for the current civilization not to be perfect. It is not intended to be there. It is the reason for that is this. Jesus Christ said, I will come again. Matthew 16:27, not as a son. I will come as the Father. I will come as the glory of God. And I have so much to tell you. However, you cannot bear them right now. You are children. When I return, as a spirit of truth, will tell you all the things that I have not told you. At the time of first century, Jesus knew about COVID, disaster, special economic disaster. He knew about it, but withheld from humanity because they could have had no idea. He withheld from humanity lots of information. He said, but when I return as the Father, I will tell you the things I haven't told you as a son. Well, I'm going to segue into the 7th segment of my presentation, which is Baha'u'llah. The Bab, before he was executed, he said the name of the title of the one who is about to come is Baha'u'llah. If you translate that word to English, the term to English, Baha means glory, Allah means God. Baha'u'llah means glory of God. This title was not given to him by himself, by the way. It was given to him by his forerunner who was shot 750 bullets. So Baha'u'llah means the glory of God. Jesus said, when I return, I will come as the glory of God. Dear friends, do you see the connection here? Jesus said, I will come again as the glory of the Father. And behold, this title is glory of the Father. He has revealed over a library of information. Son revealed one book to create the Western civilization. The Father has revealed a library. Guess what kind of civilization will the Father create? Anybody wants to take a guess? I said, heaven on earth. The civilization, the Earth's circumference is 196 million square miles. The circumference. You can see from 1 mile, Moses, to 15.3, Jesus Christ. The exponential from 1 mile to 15.3 million square miles is a geometrical progression. If you continue that to 196 million square miles, the Father's job as Baha'u'llah is to bring that civilization, divine civilization on earth, basically. So God's decree meticulously is taking place. If we stand close to it, we don't see it. If we stand back and look at the history and the will of God juxtapose the will of God into the progression of civilization, wow, how precisely the will of God is in charge of the whole thing. This should conclude my presentation, which is about 45 minutes. I am 2 minutes beyond that. So I am done with my presentation. Sorry for like 2 minutes beyond that. So.
No, thank you so much. That was really, really informative, really interesting.
Thank you.
And such an important topic. So now we have some time for questions and answers. So I'll give people a second to put their questions in the chat, and then we can have some time to get those answered. I guess I'll start us off with the question. So in this concept of progressive revelation, like how can we differentiate between, there might be a lot of people claiming to be a prophet, or, if we believe that there's going to be multiple prophets or manifestations or messengers of God, how can we differentiate and discern who is really a real prophet and who is not?
Shortcut is their fruits. You don't have to go to school for 4 years to investigate that. That's a shortcut. Read their writings and see the fruit of the writings. Long cut is go to, this is what I did. I investigated, academically, and found out who were the false ones, who were the true ones. You shall know them by their fruits. You shall know them by their fruits.
The next question is, as much as Christianity spread, it is also so divided. Why?
It was not intended to be divided. It was not intended. Jesus said, I have so much to tell you. He gave only one, only 1/1000th of what he knew. The unity that Baha'i faith has is called administrative order. Whoever asks this is a great question, friends. Jesus Christ withheld from humanity a lot of things. They were babies, spiritually babies. They were not ready. All they had to hear, the kingdom of God is coming. He withheld what we call the administrative order, the process of how to be administered among the followers, how the adherents to be. When he died, when he crucified, he never left an heir, someone to follow him. Correct? There was no one to succeed him. So the followers were divided. They didn't know what to do now. Some said there's a Catholics, some said Orthodox, some say this and this and that, because there were no instructions given to them. That which was intentionally Jesus Christ withheld from humanity, now Baha'u'llah has brought. It's called administrative order. How to create unity, prevent disunity. Jesus Christ withheld that from humanity. Hence, the disunity that we have within Christianity. It was not intended to be united, because Jesus Christ gave them no. That's why we have so many denominations. Everybody has got their own understanding of how to administer the affairs of their own church, or their own Catholic, or whatever that is. They come up with this all man-made. Hence, the disunity. Great question. In this revelation, God provided how to unite, remain united, which is critical part, which I started. The unity of the faith of the body allows us to do things small in number, but really awesome in our actions because we are united. Imagine. Anyway, I hope you answered that question.
Yes, thank you. How is Abraham the father of these 5 messengers?
Great questions. It's a promise of God. God promised that, because Abraham obeyed God, because of your obedience, I'm going to have your descendants to be the creator of nations. I will multiply you all over the earth, like as much as the sand on earth. So God promised Abraham, because you obeyed me, you're going to receive the bounties of it. And the bounties of it is all these manifestations that we know of. If anyone, that was one of my thesis points, if anyone claims to be from God, anybody, you ask, how do you know that from God or not? Manajan, you asked the first question, how do we know? Show me your genealogy. Show me your genealogy. To Abraham. Show me the, book of Matthew 1, Matthew, the first thing he did, he provided genealogy of Jesus to Abraham. He begat this, he begat that, Abraham begat this, Jacob begat all the way down to Jesus. That's the first thing to prove to his Jewish buddies and friends. The first thing he did, Matthew 1, to establish the genealogy of Jesus to who? To Abraham. So people say, oh no, that's 2,000 years ago, 3,000. How could I provide? Let's say, you say you claim to be the God's messenger. Okay, provide me your genealogy. If you are from God, according to Abraham, you must be. Well, you say, well, that's too long ago. I cannot provide that. Well, excuse me. Well, Matthew did, back at primitive knowledge that they had 2,000 years ago, provide a genealogy of Jesus to Abraham. Surely today, by me and you, but all of these 23, all of these websites that provide genealogy, surely you can provide your genealogy to Abraham. That's my question to the Mormons. If Joseph Smith is from God, show me your genealogy. Show me your connection to Abraham. Actually, I emailed Utah. If Joseph Smith is from God, provide me the exact. If Matthew provided genealogy 2,000 years ago, surely he can provide genealogy of Joseph Smith to Abraham. I've waited about a year now. I have not received anything. So if you ask question, how do you know the fruit is one, the genealogy is another one? A false one. That's how we know they're God's descendant, Abraham's descendant.
Thank you. The next question is, I wonder how come people choose their own will over God's will, while our very existence isn't the result of our own will? Where do all of our selfish desires come from?
Lack of knowledge of God's decree. Lack of knowledge, lack of studying, lack of understanding of what is God's decree. Dear friends, in essence, there is no free will. We have no free will. Why am I saying this? This is my understanding. If one understands what God's decree is, as angels did in my story, they would never choose anything but God's decree, but God's will. Because we don't understand it, we follow what Hollywood shows us, what TikTok shows us, what surrounding people show us. That's why we choose. Our will can stand in front of God's will. Therefore, postponing this heaven on earth, delaying it. It's going to happen. This decree is going to happen, but we can speed it up or delay it.
Was it a divine plan or man's intervention to put its will before the will of God?
Divine. He gave us free choice, free will. He did not say, oppose me. It is not fair for us to be robots. God is the creator, correct? If we are his image, We have to be creator too. We are in a time of the creators. That's why we create all these inventions, technologies. So if we are God's image, we are also creator. A creator cannot be a robot, cannot just follow predestined, design. We have been given free will to create things. Lack of understanding that God's will is what makes us create all of these, XYZs.
The next question is, what happened between the Jews and the Romans around 70 CE? I'm starting to read different interpretations.
70, okay. The battle, the war between Jews and Romans did not end just when Jesus Christ came. It was not a light to turn off and light on and off. So suddenly the animosity was gone. The animosity lasted even until today, actually. What happened? Could you clarify your question? What happened in 7 years? Tell me what is, because I don't fully understand your question.
What happened between the Jews and the Romans?
Okay. From the biblical understanding is that year 33, the Roman, governor of Judah, Pontius Pilate, basically washed his hands off. He said, I don't see anything wrong with this man to crucify him, but I leave it to the Jews. Jews are crucify him. So he proceeded with his crucifixion. So they were benevolent towards, the Christian movement, but Jews were really harsh on that. Because so many of their relatives were killed by the Romans. So many of them were raped and all of that. So this continued. Jesus said in his prophecy that not a stone would remain on this temple that had been built. So on the year 70, understand that Romans invaded and destroyed that temple and left nothing standing. Within the first century of Christianity, Christianity was really unorganized, just movement of just faith here and there. After the first century, began to develop its own arms and legs and structure. So the animosity continued. And dear friends, do you all know that the animosity between these two people, Vatican opened up their embassy in Israel just about 2-3 decades ago. There were no relationship from that time. That Rome, the Rome that we know of, Vatican, they had no embassy in Jerusalem and vice versa. This is recent phenomenon. The animosity extended, even though war ended, but animosity even, if you look into when the embassy started, just look it up. It's a very interesting extension of the animosity from back then until, now they've got embassy in both countries finally.
Okay, the next comment/question is, one must keep in mind that the spread of Christianity has not been through love and compassion always, but also through force and coercion, as we see in North America, South America, and other colonial pursuits. Can we acknowledge that the current world suffering and injustice that has been brought about through force in Christianity can only be addressed and healed through Baha'u'llah's revelation, who acknowledges messengers that came to all parts of the world and says that world unity can only be achieved through justice and wisdom?
Or like a statement. Yes, but this is part of my thesis, actually. The Crusade Wars, the Spanish Inquisitions, the bloodshed caused by Christianity is, no one can deny history. The checkered history of Christianity is not pure as it can be like to. It was not intended, dear friends, for it to become the ultimate force of. One thing is very important question that you asked there. Blessed are the peacemakers. Now, blessed the meeks shall inherit. The meeks shall inherit the earth, as one of the Jesus Christ teachings. Who are the meeks? Meek is the one who has never shed blood. His blood has been shed, but never has shed the blood. So Christianity has shed blood, Islam has shed blood, Judaism has shed blood, Buddhism, all religions, even Bobby's faith have shed blood. The only religion that has not shed blood is Baha'i faith. We allowed to be killed, but Baha'u'llah says you never retaliate. So the only one that has never, any only religion, if you can check it scientifically, objectively, only religion that has never shed one drop of blood of somebody else is this revelation. So by definition of history, Baha'i faith is the only ones who fulfill the definition of the meekness. So your answer, whoever asks this question, that is quite accurate. Baha'is will give our lives, but will not take lives, as we know that currently what's happening in Iran. Good questions.
There's a question. Are all manifestations of God descendants of Abraham, like Buddha, Krishna, Zoroaster, etc.?
Good question. No. Not that records can show. There are other God's manifestations which I did not mention. The reason they are from, they're mostly impacted Asia and other parts of the world. Those four that are from God that we know of is Moses, Abraham, Jesus Christ, and Baha'u'llah, and the Bab. These are the only five that we have the genealogy. We have the genealogy of Bab and Baha'u'llah, that he is from Abraham. You know, this much meaning. But the others are not. And Jesus Christ said, I have other sheep that are not from this flock. I have other that are not from this group. And he mentioned that there are other people that are not from this flock of Jewish tribe. It's just phenomenal to just see what the will of God is taking place and try to contribute to its fulfillment, to make our own dot or T, a little small dot on the pages of the divine, decree that before I died, I did contribute a dot on the fulfillment of his decree, rather than erase from it to make us go back. We want to make it to go forward rather than take away from this effort that has been made since thousands of years. We all want to contribute to it.
Can you speak to NDEs in the light of the Bible and other scripture? I think that's referring to near-death experiences.
Yeah, okay. Personally, you are born only once. You come from mother's womb. You come to this world only once. You don't go back to mother's womb. Once one dies, but I'm not saying I'm Dr. Chiropractic. Know a few things about health. Many near-death experiences are not death. It's near death, what they call near death. Once death takes place physiologically, I'm speaking strictly physiology. When the heart stops beating, does it mean you're dead? No, you have 5 minutes of oxygen in the brain yet. So if somebody dies, do not leave them for the next 5 minutes because they are still alive. They can hear you because the brain still has oxygen in it. So death is basically when the brain has stopped completely functioning. Many times people, because heart stopped functioning, they announce them dead. But no, they are still alive. They can come back again from near death. That's why it's near death. So no, I don't believe that this is all near death. You can never die. Once the brain has stopped functioning, nothing can get back at you again. Physiologically, it's impossible. And they say, yes, I saw myself above. I thought, yeah, the brain still was functioning. That's not death. You're not dead yet. So you're still alive because your brain is functioning. It's got oxygen in it. Therefore, you're alive. So personally, when you're born once, you die once. Some people may not fully agree with me, but that's my personal, not Baha'i faith. That's my personal, understanding. As I trained for 6 years, that this point came up numbers of times during our discussion among students. We've had a lot of discussions. So guided by professors, we kind of came to the conclusion that no, near-death experience is not physiologically possible. Good question.
Thank you. I think that's all of our questions. So thank you so much for your talk and for answering all of our questions. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. I loved it. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming, friends.
Thank you. So our speaker next week will be Luke Slot, and a recording of this talk will be up on our YouTube channel within the next week. So I'll put the link to that in the chat. You can subscribe, and then when it's uploaded, you'll get notified. And these talks, again, are every Saturday at noon Eastern time. So I'll also put a link to our mailing list if you're not subscribed already. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye.